There is a game being played all around you, and most people do not even know it exists. It happens in office parking lots, on social media feeds, at dinner tables, and in weekend brunch conversations. It is quiet, constant, and remarkably well rehearsed. People performing a version of financial success they have not actually achieved, projecting an image of wealth that has no foundation underneath it, no savings, no investments, no real security, just the surface, just the costume. And here is the part that makes this genuinely worth understanding. The costume has gotten very good. The signals that used to separate real financial security from borrowed appearance have blurred. A credit card can put a luxury car in anyone's driveway. A financing plan can put a designer watch on anyone's wrist. A buy now, pay later service can fill anyone's wardrobe with things they cannot actually afford. The performance of wealth has never been more accessible or more financially destructive than it is right now. This video is not about judging anyone, it's about pattern recognition. Once you learn to see these 10 signs clearly, two things happen. You stop being impressed by things that do not mean what they appear to mean, and, more importantly, you stop accidentally building these patterns into your own financial life, because some of them are easy to slide into without ever consciously choosing them. Real wealth and the appearance of wealth are not the same thing. Today, you're going to learn exactly how to tell them apart. Sign 1. The logo without the foundation. The first sign is one of the most visible and one of the most misread. Someone whose wardrobe, accessories, and possessions are built around recognizable brand names and logos, but whose financial foundation underneath those logos is essentially empty. The designer handbag, the luxury brand sneakers, the belt with the recognizable buckle, the watch from a name that signals status before the time is even read. Each individual item communicates something about the person wearing it. The question is what it actually communicates versus what it is intended to communicate. For genuinely wealthy people, a luxury purchase represents a small fraction of a large and established net worth. It's a rounding error on a balance sheet that has real substance behind it. For someone performing wealth without possessing it, that same purchase represents a significant financial sacrifice, sometimes months of income, sometimes credit card debt, sometimes both, made entirely in service of how other people perceive them for the seconds they are visible. The tell is proportion. When the logo items are the most expensive things a person owns, when the bag costs more than what's in the savings account, when the watch costs more than the emergency fund, the luxury is not a reward for financial success, it's a substitute for it, a signal sent outward to compensate for an absence felt inward. Real wealth rarely needs to announce itself through logos. The financial security itself provides what the logo is trying to manufacture. Sign 2. Every conversation circles back to money. The second sign is behavioral rather than material. Pay attention to how someone talks, not just what they own. There's a particular type of person who steers almost every conversation toward money, toward what they earn, what they are working on, what deal is about to close, what investment is about to pay off. No matter where a conversation begins, it finds its way back to their financial narrative, and that narrative is almost always about what is coming rather than what is already there. Once this deal goes through, everything changes. I've got something in the works that's going to be significant. Next quarter is going to be a completely different story. The future tense is the tell. Genuinely financially secure people talk about what they have built. People performing financial success talk about what they are about to build, because the present reality does not match the image they need to project. There's also a pattern of confusing large numbers with personal wealth. Someone who mentions that their business turned over $500,000 last year without mentioning that their personal take-home after expenses was closer to $40,000. Revenue sounds impressive. Profit is what actually matters. the distinction gets blurred, sometimes accidentally, sometimes deliberately, because the impressive number is more useful for the performance. People who are genuinely comfortable with their financial situation rarely feel the need to discuss it constantly. The security itself reduces the compulsion to seek external validation. The person who cannot stop talking about money is almost always the person who is most anxious about it. Sign 3. The entry-level luxury vehicle. This sign deserves its own careful examination because it's one of the most common and one of the most financially damaging patterns in the fake rich playbook. The base model of a prestige brand, the entry-level luxury vehicle from a manufacturer whose upper-tier vehicles cost 3 or 4 times as much. The logo on the hood is identical across the entire range. The financial position of the owners is not. Car manufacturers understand this psychology precisely, and they engineer their product lines around it. The entry-level model exists specifically for the buyer who wants the badge without the budget for the full experience, and who is willing to pay significantly more than a comparable practical vehicle would cost in order to have that badge visible to other people. Here's what makes this particularly costly. The entry-level luxury vehicle doesn't just carry a higher purchase price than a comparable practical vehicle. It carries higher insurance premiums, higher maintenance costs, more expensive parts when something wears out, premium fuel requirements in some cases. The ongoing cost of ownership is elevated in every direction, not because the vehicle performs better, but because the brand attached to it has a price structure that runs across the entire ownership experience. Someone who stretched their budget to put a prestige logo in their driveway is not spending more once at the dealership, they're spending more every month for years. That monthly premium, directed into investments over a decade, compounds into a number that would genuinely surprise most people who made the purchase. The practical vehicle, with a fraction of the status and twice the financial sensibility, is the choice that builds real wealth. The badge vehicle is the choice that maintains an appearance while quietly eroding the foundation. Sign 4. Financing things that depreciate immediately. The fourth sign is less visible than a logo or car, but more revealing than either. It is the willingness to finance consumption, to pay interest on things that are simultaneously losing value from the moment of purchase. A designer item, a buy now, pay later arrangement for clothing, monthly payments on electronics, credit card debt accumulated through restaurant meals, travel, and everyday spending that is never fully cleared before interest begins accruing. There is a structural problem with financing depreciating goods that goes beyond the interest rate. The item is worth less the moment you own it than it was the moment you agreed to buy it. The debt remains at the original amount plus interest. The gap between what you owe and what the thing is worth moves in 2 directions simultaneously. The item depreciates while the debt cost grows. You finish paying for something after it has already become less than what you paid. Genuinely wealthy people use debt selectively and strategically for assets that appreciate or generate returns, not for consumption. The person who puts a luxury vacation on a credit card and pays it off over 8 months has not taken a vacation. They have taken out a high-interest loan to fund an experience that is over before the debt is. The memory is free. The debt costs significantly more than the trip did. This pattern, financing the appearance of abundance while building actual debt, is one of the most direct paths to financial fragility dressed up as financial confidence. Sign 5. Lifestyle that requires every dollar to maintain. The fifth sign is one of the most important because it describes not a single purchase, but an entire financial architecture. When someone's lifestyle is so precisely calibrated to their income that any disruption, a missed paycheck, an unexpected expense, a change in employment, immediately becomes a crisis, that is not wealth. That is a tightrope walk with no net. Real financial security has margin. It has space between income and expenditure that accumulates over time into something resilient. The person who is genuinely financially stable can absorb an unexpected car repair without reorganizing their finances. They can miss one paycheck without panic. They have options because their lifestyle does not consume every dollar they earn. The fake rich lifestyle is constructed to the exact ceiling of current income and sometimes beyond it. The rent or mortgage at the maximum qualifying amount, the car payments that fill the remaining space, the subscriptions, the dining habits, the wardrobe maintenance, each one reasonable seeming individually, collectively consuming everything that comes in. The result is a life that looks impressive from the outside and feels precarious from the inside. The constant low-level financial anxiety that accompanies this lifestyle is one of its defining characteristics. The checking account that gets checked multiple times a day, the mental arithmetic running in the background of every spending decision, the relief when a paycheck arrives, and the creeping stress as it drains away. This is not the experience of wealth. It is the experience of successfully performing wealth while living without its actual benefits. Sign 6. Social media as a financial performance stage. The sixth sign lives on your phone. The carefully curated feed that documents every meal at an impressive restaurant, every hotel lobby, every business class seat, every shopping bag, every occasion that can be framed as evidence of a life being lived at a premium level. Social media has created something genuinely new in human history, the ability to broadcast a highlight reel of your life to hundreds or thousands of people continuously, with complete control over what is included and what is omitted. The struggles, the debt, the anxiety, the ordinary Tuesday evenings, invisible. The exceptional moments, presented as though they represent the norm, front and center, curated, filtered, and repeated. The problem is that this broadcast has a cost. The meal photographed for the post has a price. The outfit worn for the content has a price. The travel documented for the feed has a price. When that cost is funded by actual disposable income, after savings and investments are handled, it is a lifestyle choice with no financial judgment attached. When it is funded by debt, by neglected savings, by the choice to perform wealth rather than build it, it is something else entirely. Watch for the gap between the frequency of impressive moments documented online and the underlying financial reality those moments represent. The feed that shows a different restaurant every week, travel every few months, and constant consumption of visible luxury items often belongs to someone whose net worth would shock the followers watching. Sign 7. Zero conversation about boring financial habits. This sign works in the opposite direction from sign 2. The fake rich talk constantly about impressive financial activity, deals, investments, income projections, luxury purchases. What they almost never mention are the unglamorous financial habits that actually build wealth. Automated savings transfers, index fund contributions, emergency fund maintenance, boring, repetitive, unimpressive behaviors repeated consistently over years and decades. These are not interesting to discuss. They do not make compelling content. They do not generate the kind of reactions that public financial performance generates. But they are, almost without exception, the actual mechanism by which financial security gets built. Genuinely wealthy people, particularly those who built wealth gradually rather than inheriting it or winning it, often describe their financial lives in terms that sound almost tediously ordinary. They saved a percentage of every paycheck before spending anything. They invested consistently without trying to time the market. They made few dramatic moves and many small, consistent ones. The story is quiet because the strategy is quiet. The person performing wealth has dramatic stories and no boring ones. The absence of these boring details is itself a revealing signal.
Sign 8. Spending to match the group rather than a personal standard. The eighth sign is perhaps the most psychologically revealing. The person whose spending is determined not by their own financial position or values, but by what the people around them appear to be doing. The colleague buys a luxury car, and suddenly the current car feels inadequate. The friend renovates their kitchen, and suddenly the existing kitchen needs updating. The social group chooses an expensive restaurant, and the discomfort of suggesting something more affordable feels worse than the discomfort of the credit card bill that follows. This is social comparison spending, consumption driven by the need to remain visually positioned within a peer group rather than by genuine desire for the things purchased. And this is one of the most effective wealth-destroying forces that exists, because it has no ceiling. There is always someone in any social environment spending more. Matching the top of the group is an expanding target that income cannot reliably hit.
The particularly cruel irony of this pattern is that everyone in the group is frequently doing the same thing, spending to match each other, none of them based on actual wealth, all of them creating the appearance that justifies the next person's spending. A collective performance in which everyone is the audience and everyone is also the performer, and nobody is actually as financially comfortable as the group's spending patterns suggest. People who build genuine wealth establish a personal financial standard and hold it regardless of what the social environment appears to demand. They are genuinely indifferent to the car in the neighbor's driveway, not because they are incurious or antisocial, but because their sense of financial identity does not depend on external comparison. Sign 9. No knowledge of their actual net worth. Here is a question that separates the genuinely financially aware from the performers. What is your net worth right now, approximately? Not income, not the value of the car or the apartment. Net worth, everything owned minus everything owed, the actual number that represents real financial position. Most people who are genuinely building wealth can answer this question immediately and roughly accurately. They track it because it is the number that actually matters, the one that reflects whether financial decisions are producing cumulative progress or cumulative debt. It tends to go up when they are on the right track and serve as a warning when they are not. People performing wealth often cannot answer this question or answer it in ways that reveal they have never actually done the calculation. They reference income instead of assets. They count the value of possessions they own on debt. They have a general sense that things are going well without any concrete understanding of what the actual balance sheet looks like. Not knowing your net worth is not a moral failing, but it is a reliable indicator that financial decisions are being made based on how things feel rather than what the numbers show. And feelings, particularly feelings designed to maintain an appearance, are unreliable financial guides. Sign 10. Using complexity as a substitute for substance. The 10th and final sign is the most sophisticated and the most interesting. The person who talks about their finances in ways that sound impressive and complex, dropping terminology, referencing strategies, implying sophistication, but whose actual financial position, if examined closely, contains very little underneath the language. Cryptocurrency portfolios mentioned without actual portfolio sizes. Real estate investments referenced without mentioning the debt ratios. Business ventures described in terms of potential rather than current reality. Hustle culture vocabulary deployed to create an impression of financial momentum that may or may not correspond to actual financial progress. Complexity is not the same as substance. The most reliably wealth-building financial behaviors are also the least complex. Save consistently, invest in broadly diversified low-cost funds, spend less than you earn, let time do the compounding. These strategies require no sophisticated vocabulary. They require only consistent execution over long periods. The person who genuinely has financial substance rarely needs to make it sound complicated. The complexity in their life is practical, tax optimization at a real scale,
estate planning for actual assets, decisions that arise from the genuine management of significant wealth. The complexity is downstream of the substance, not a substitute for it. Real wealth and performed wealth are not just different in degree, they are different in direction. One builds, the other drains. One compounds quietly over time into genuine security. The other requires constant maintenance and produces nothing durable. None of these 10 signs exist to make you feel superior to anyone displaying them. Most of the people caught in these patterns did not consciously choose them. The patterns formed through social pressure, cultural messaging, and the remarkably human desire to be perceived as successful. They are understandable. They are also financially destructive, slowly, consistently, and almost invisibly. The most useful thing this video can do is make the pattern visible, because once you see it clearly in others and potentially in yourself, it loses much of its power. The badge on the car stops looking like evidence of success and starts looking like a monthly payment. The logo on the bag stops signaling wealth and starts signaling proportion. The social media highlight reel stops generating envy and starts generating questions about what the full picture looks like. Real wealth does not need an audience. It does not require performance or validation or continuous signals sent outward to convince other people that everything is going well. It simply exists in the account balance, in the invested assets, in the options available when circumstances change. That is what is worth building. And the first step is refusing to confuse the appearance of it with the thing itself. If this shifted how you see financial signals around you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep going deeper into how money and psychology actually connect, stick around. That is exactly what this channel is built for.